Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 718. That's right, 718. I'm here with my good friend, Peter Thiele. It's really great to have you again. You can see our very first episode 7.5 years ago.
Yeah, it's a long time.
No, absolutely. That was episode season 2, episode 123. It's amazing how far I came in 7.5 years.
No, it's good. I mean, good for your success.
No, I appreciate it. And it's great to see you again after all these years. How has it been quarantine?
It's been fine. I moved to a new city about a year ago. So I'm in a new place with not knowing a lot of people. So quarantine has been quarantine. How's quarantine for you?
Yeah, pretty good. Staying home for the most part. Me and my dad sneak out early to go to ShopRite at like 8:39 in the morning because no one's really there during those hours.
No, the earlier the better.
Absolutely. My dad got tired of we use Instacart, but he got tired of $200 and it was adding up. It's like, how about I just go myself, get what I need, and for Instacart, it's great. I love Instacart, but you get the heavy bag fee, you have the tip fee, you have the whatever fee, and the fees add up. So something that's like $40, $50, you're paying $150. You're gonna pay $180 for something where you can easily go to the store and get it for next to nothing.
Yeah, it's all about going at early and at the right time, and doing the right things. It's again the pandemic is that the things that everybody has to keep in mind is that if you are healthy, you have very little to fear about this disease. The CDC came out with numbers the other day. People that had only coronavirus who died were less than 10,000 of the 180,000.
But as for someone who worked at the media, they do cover up and make up fake numbers.
Well, the deal is that the problem with the numbers on this thing is not necessarily the media. It's the way our government works is we're not a centralized government. Everybody thinks we're centralized. Everyone thinks that everything is at the federal government level, but it isn't. Most of it is this type of stuff is at the state level. And depending on which state you're in, it's been handled better than it's been handled in other states. If you look at what happened in New York and New Jersey, especially, that got nailed early by this thing. New York and New Jersey, when it's all said and done, they were late to the party when they were beginning to get infected. The problem with both of those states is that everybody's close together. Everybody rides mass transportation. So you're touching the same things. You are in close proximity to a lot of people. And they were not aggressive early. They didn't understand the process with senior citizens and old folks' homes. And that's why they had, if you go through and look at New York and New Jersey, they have more deaths per capita than anywhere else in the country from this thing.
No, you're right. And my dad said, if everyone did what they were supposed to, stay home back in January, stay home for 6 weeks, self-quarantine, it wouldn't be, okay, that's not the answer to make it disappear, but at least it would have, I don't know, I'm not pulling the numbers out of my ass. it would have not been so bad as it is right now if you stayed home
Well,
6
the
weeks.
deal is it's a virus, and we slowed the spread.
Yeah,
We did. The idea is that in March, when this thing really hit, you have to realize at the beginning of March, we had elected officials, two big ones who I'll name three elected officials who said there was nothing to worry about. This was not going to be more than the standard flu. Nancy Pelosi, Bill de Blasio, and Andrew Cuomo. They said no reason to worry. And by the end of March, they were locking down everything. And the problem was with it is that since we started, is that we didn't understand how it was going to hit. We did a lot of the stuff at the federal level that we could do. We banned travel from China. Hold on, the dog's got to get up. Here's the dog.
that's a cute dog.
Yeah, he's a cute little guy. So the process came into is that we started late. We did not have the PPE. We didn't have the respirators. We didn't have all these different things. And so literally we were, as a nation, states, were doing whatever we could to get those things in place. And we did. We successfully got those in place. And the process is, part of it is, if you're somebody who has high blood pressure, if you have diabetes, or you're a cancer survivor or cancer patient, you've got to keep yourself in low profile. And if you're going out, you better be following every piece of advice for wearing a mask and doing all that sort of stuff. And a lot of people weren't. And we're going to be dissecting this pandemic for a long time. Are there things that we could have done different? Heavens, yes. Should we have started earlier? Yes, but remember, the World Health Organization put out a tweet at the end of January saying there was no evidence of person-to-person transfer of COVID-19. So the information by the top levels, the World Health Organization, their job, they have one job, is to help prevent a pandemic from breaking out. And China did very communication. The United States officially has more deaths than what China did. But if you believe that China had less deaths than the United States, you're giving the Chinese a lot of credit for what they put forth. No one believes those numbers. Those numbers aren't true, because they put out those numbers, and they've had follow-up after. It's Shanghai, Beijing, not just Wuhan. It's hit several of their major cities. And they have many more people in a much smaller space. So it's New York City, compared to some of the cities in China, are very is very underpopulated as people per square mile. And if you look at what Japan did, they shut down people coming in. They did a bunch of adjustments, and Japan did very, very well. In the United States, you had governors of states arguing over things. You had what happened in New York, where even though there were a bunch of hospital beds set up at the Javits Center, we were putting COVID positive people into old folks' homes, and that's where most of the people died.
No, I agree with you. But
It's
you
a
also, oh, go ahead.
it's a crime.
No, I agree. And you can't always put the blame on Trump, even though he is guilty. But you go back to so many things. You look at Trump, you look at Obama and Bush and Clinton, and they always said one day a pandemic will strike. You don't know when, but it will. During all those 4 terms, you could have been stockpiling masks, gloves, ventilators. Even if you bury this stuff and you say you never have to use it, the point is you have it in a worst case scenario. Obama said recently, when he was president, there's going to come a day where there's going to be a pandemic. And he's guilty too, because he didn't do a damn thing.
Well, and again, a lot of these things, and we forget about this, but it's true, is that a lot of the health stuff is not handled by the federal government. Emergency stuff and all that's handled by states and counties, etc., and cities. For instance, New York City had a bunch of ventilators, and they sold off like 3-4 years ago a bunch of their ventilators. So being prepared for this and knowing what was going to happen is that the federal government told the states what to have, gave them the recommended amount to have per, I'm sure the way the government usually does this stuff is per 100,000 residents, have this many. And very few states, and especially the states that were in the place that got nailed the hardest by this, they were not even close. And remember the USS Comfort going into New York Harbor.
Oh, you mean the big ship they told to turn around?
Well, it arrived. It sat there, and what its original job was to take care of people that needed necessary medical care so the hospitals could care for COVID patients. They ended up using less than 50 beds on that hospital ship. The Javits Center was converted over to a hospital. And again, very few beds were used, but they spent millions of dollars. All came from the federal government to change the HVAC in the Javits Center to accommodate hospital conditions. So when they write the story of this, and we're not, and people could have done a lot of stuff better, no question about it. But if you begin to look at how our system works, and you may say, well, it's a bad idea the way that we do it. It very well may be. I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just saying the idea here is that any type of health crisis is always handled by states, cities, and counties. That is the first line. The federal government using support information and support stuff to come in and help. And the federal government did what they should have done. The deal is now in Europe, there was a deal there in Europe for a while there, probably about a month ago, where they had really curtailed their cases. They were doing really well. Well, now there's a big outbreak again in Germany and in France. So, all I can say is that we have to be responsible for ourselves. If you have somebody in your household that's diabetic, they can't leave the house. You can't let them out. If you have a senior citizen in your home, they can't go out. Those are the people that are in the real trouble for this thing. And realize the flu, we have an immunization for the flu, a vaccine. And a large percentage of the population gets the flu shot every year. I know I do.
Me too.
And still, Every year, 60 to 70,000 people die from the flu. And it's not straight from the flu. It's exactly what's killing people with COVID. Of course, our problem with COVID, there's no vaccine yet, and there will be. They're working on it really hard. It's the process with the vaccine is that'll be a game changer. For instance, if the flu, if there was not a vaccine one year, we would have the same amount of deaths.
True, and the vaccine doesn't guarantee that you will not get it. Perfect example is I always get my flu shot, and this past February I was sick as a dog because, one, I got a stomach virus on top of everything, but I had a stomach virus and the flu at the same time.
Yeah.
So getting it doesn't always guarantee that you're not going to get some form of it.
Well, and the problem, the problem, of course, with the flu is that we have a good idea of what the flu strain will be, but there are years where it's a little bit different than what's anticipated. It was I can't remember, it's probably 4 or 5 years ago that they ended up changing the flu shot in the fall because there was a change in the strain of flu, and that happens. So the flu is a movable sort of thing, and these COVID viruses, they've been around forever. The deal is that we just haven't had one like this. So the process is we'll end up getting it, but if you sit there and you wear your masks, and I have cloth masks, I wear them once, and then I wash them. I have 5 of them. I wash them every 5 days. And I try, and I try when I'm at the store and I am running errands not to touch stuff there unless I'm buying it. And a lot of people, if you sit and watch them at the store, if you just sit and watch and observe, you'll find that a lot of people, they go out of their way and touch everything. And this virus can live on a surface for up to 3 days, depending on the surface. So if all of a sudden, you touch something that was infected, then you touch your nose, your eyes, your lips, or if you have a sore on your hands or something like that, you've been exposed. Doesn't mean you're going to get the disease. You may not get it. It may not manifest in your body at all, but you've been exposed. So, the simplest things, wear your mask. When you go and have to go to the store, don't touch anything unless you're picking it up to buy it. That'll limit your amount of problems.
No, absolutely. Now, I did have a couple other questions for you, but while we're on here, we can make every episode very different, so we might as well halfway through. But the next thing I want to ask you is, how do you feel about people going back to college and school? School's open this week, and some open next week. That's another thing that you're adding gas to the fire.
Yes and no. I think the deal is at some point we have to get back to being somewhat normal. I think we know how to avoid the disease and to avoid exposure with it. I think that it's, especially for, kids in school, while they can pick it up, obviously, it's they're not as much at risk of it. The deal is that all of a sudden, 8-year-old goes and hugs his Grampy, and Grampy gets it. We're going to have to get it done, and we have to go out and figure out, okay, what's the risk? And if the risk, and what's the risk of not doing it? It's keeping kids out of school. The biggest problem with e-learning, which, by the way, I think is great, and going from there, is that our schools are not prepared for it at all. Some school districts are doing things like, and I think this is really smart, that for the kids that are at home, some schools do rotating days. Some schools are doing, if the parent says, I want my kid at home, some schools are doing it where the kid is in the classroom with who their normal teacher would be, and there's 20 kids in the class. The problem with that is that the teacher cannot watch everything at the same time. So some school districts are doing, and I think this is really smart, they have, for the kids who are e-learning, they have them working with a specific teacher who's not teaching to a class. He or she is teaching to the e-learning kids, and I think that's very smart.
What you can also do, and as part of it, is say you can, that's another stupid thing, but I answered my own question. But I was going to say you could email the lessons. Actually, that's a good idea. You can actually email the lessons that you have to take, and then you can just fax it back and forth. So you don't have to tuss it. And okay, yes, my other idea is you can mail it, but if you mail it, then you have to wait a couple of days for you to actually see it and tuss it. But if you actually do everything online, like seniors have to take college classes, you can do it online, fill it out, and fax it back and forth.
The deal is that there should be with all the technology, should be a ability to do the portal, to where they can do it from wherever, just like an app on your phone. The deal is our education system, due to several reasons, is very antiquated. We are teaching people in school the same way we've done it for 150 years. The subjects may have changed, the books may have changed, what have you, but we are teaching essentially in the same way. Well, here's the problem. We know more about how the brain works today than we did 150 years ago. But the process of learning has not changed at all, even though now we know, okay, well, for a 10-year-old, they work best and learn quickest if we do this and take the technology and the data. And schools, because it is a bureaucracy, because of unions, because of many things, they have not adapted to the science of how kids learn. One of the reasons why homeschool kids tend to, not always of course, tend to do better than schools and classrooms is because homeschools are set up in a way that the kid has to reach their academic achievement, but they allow the child to follow his or her passions. And because they're following their own passions and they're learning, they're falling in love with learning instead of just being taught a test. And that's one of the things that we have to begin to look at. We have to reinvent education as a country, and we already have. There's charter schools, there's homeschooling type of things that the students do absolutely great at. And by the way, these kids are not quote unquote smarter than kids going to a public school or what have you. They're just working in a more engaged and stimulating environment for learning.
No, I agree. What's the last 3 minutes left? I'm just gonna throw it out there. With everything going on, it's kind of feels like 2020's, it's been a banner year. You have the flu, you have the Black Lives Matter, you have the shootings that are up. What's funny in a sick kind of demented way is that once the quarantine happened, there's a gun store in my area. Their sales been going through the roof. There was a line of people who wanted to buy guns, and the gun sales are been up. And it's kind of like, what the hell do we need that for? But it feels like we're moving backwards instead of moving forwards. Now, I do have a couple questions for you off the air. But wrapping up, when I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show after 7.5 years, what was your honest first reaction and what made you say yes?
I just said, I just sat there and I said, okay, let's do it.
No, absolutely. And now how can people follow you on social media?
Yeah, at Peter Thiele, at Peter, T as in Thomas, Hiele. That's the best way to do me. Follow me on Twitter.
No, absolutely. Wrapping up our interview segment, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest, and I'm looking forward to part 3 down the road.
Hi guys, my name is Kat Johnston.
This is Donna Drake.
This is Kayleen.
Hi, my name is Kara Svuchek.
I'm Julia Brothers.
Jenna Curtis.
Hey, I'm Jenny Fon.
Hi, it's Mimi Chin.
Hi, my name is Ella Dorsch.
My name is Shauna Toft.
Hey guys, I'm Anastasia Edwards.
Hi, this is Jackie Nunez.
Actress Becky Hayes.
Hi, I'm Amelia Rose.
Hey there, I'm Saki Mieta.
Hi guys, I'm Alexandria Denise, and you're watching Keith Andrews' show.